They told you that intelligence is something you are born with, that some minds are simply built sharper than others, that if you have to struggle to think clearly, you were never meant for greatness. That is the lie they fed you, handed down through schools designed to manufacture compliance, through media engineered to fracture your attention, through a culture that profits from your confusion. The truth Machiavelli understood, and the one they spent centuries trying to bury, is that a sharp mind is not inherited. It is forged through subtraction, through stillness, through the ruthless elimination of everything that does not serve the blade. Most people will never discover this. They will spend their entire lives drowning in noise they mistake for thought, reacting to stimulation they mistake for experience. But there are 7 specific things a sharp mind does that the ordinary mind has been conditioned to avoid. The 7th one will expose exactly why you have been mentally caged your entire life. If you are not ready for this, close it now. Go back to the scroll. But if you want to know the truth, keep watching. The myth of the gifted mind. You were brainwashed to believe that intelligence is fixed. School reinforced it. You either kept up or you fell behind, and falling behind meant you were less. Religion reinforced it. Some are called, others are not. Media reinforced it. Genius is spectacle, something extraordinary you watch from a distance. And so the average person stopped training the mind the way a soldier trains the body. They outsourced their thinking to whoever spoke loudest. They confused consuming information with building intelligence. They confused activity with progress. Machiavelli saw this with surgical clarity. In The Prince, he wrote, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." The difference was never raw talent. It was discipline of thought, the willingness to confront reality without the comfort of delusion, to act with precision when others were still deliberating, to move while the crowd was still looking for permission. The modern world does not want you to discover this. A sharp mind is ungovernable. It sees through manipulation. It cannot be sold fear. It cannot be herded. And a population of ungovernable minds is every institution's worst nightmare. I'm going to show you how to build one. But be warned, what follows is not comfortable. Comfort is what dulled you in the first place. Phase 1. Subtraction is the first weapon. The average man believes sharpness comes from adding more information, more books, more productivity hacks, more courses, frameworks, opinions. He fills his mind the way a hoarder fills a house. Every new thing feels like progress, until one day he can no longer move through his own rooms. The first law of a sharp mind is ruthless subtraction. Remove before you add. Cut before you construct. Psychologist Barry Schwartz documented this in his research on what he called the paradox of choice, the phenomenon where more options do not liberate people, but paralyze them. The mind, drowning in inputs, does not become more intelligent. It becomes slower, more anxious, less decisive. Precision requires narrowing, not expansion. Caesar understood this on the battlefield. His armies moved faster than any opponent, not because they carried more, but because they carried less. Every unnecessary piece of equipment was abandoned. Every non-essential decision was stripped away. The result was a war machine so efficient it could cover ground that exhausted armies twice its size. Apply this to your mind. Identify 5 sources of input you absorb daily: social media feeds, news cycles, opinions of people whose lives you do not respect, and eliminate them. Not limit them, eliminate. Every source you cut is attention reclaimed. Every silence you create is sharpness restored. Do this for 30 days, and your thinking will be unrecognizable. Because if subtraction is the first weapon, what you discover in the silence is the second, and it is far more dangerous. Phase 2. Stillness is where intelligence lives. 99% of people are terrified of silence, not because they dislike peace, but because in silence they are forced to meet themselves. And what waits there is everything they have been running from: the unfinished thoughts, the unresolved decisions, the questions they never had the courage to ask. So they fill the silence, constantly. Music during workouts, podcasts while driving, scrolling before sleep. The modern person has engineered a life in which silence is never permitted to exist long enough to become dangerous. But stillness is not emptiness. It is where the mind processes without performance. Neuroscientist Marcus Raichel's research on the brain's default mode network revealed something that overturned decades of assumption. The brain is most actively consolidating learning, integrating experience, and generating insight not during focus, but during rest. Stillness is not wasted time. It is the furnace. The Spartans trained their soldiers in one discipline above all others before any physical conditioning began: the discipline of sitting without movement, without speech, without distraction, for hours. Not as punishment, as construction. A warrior who cannot sit with himself cannot command himself, and a man who cannot command himself is always at the mercy of whoever can. Build deliberate stillness into your day. Not meditation as the wellness industry sells it, candles and breath work and gentle affirmations. Stillness as interrogation. Sit in silence for 20 minutes and force the most uncomfortable question you have been avoiding to surface. Then stay with it. Do not reach for the phone. Do not reach for noise. Let the discomfort speak. What it tells you is intelligence that no book can provide. You are still here. Good. The fragile ones already left. What follows is where most people break. Phase 3. Emotional immunity is not coldness. It is armor. The moment emotion takes command of thought, judgment disappears. Not weakens, disappears. The enraged man cannot calculate. The anxious man cannot decide. The wounded man cannot lead. Emotion is not the enemy. It is raw intelligence in an unrefined state. Left unrefined, it destroys you. Mastered, it becomes signal. Machiavelli wrote, "The one who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived." The emotionally reactive are the permanently deceivable. They announce their wounds through overreaction. They telegraph their insecurities through defensiveness. Every emotional display is a map of where they can be broken. Joe Navarro, the FBI's foremost expert on nonverbal behavior and deception detection, built an entire methodology around this principle: that people who cannot manage their emotional baseline leak information through micro-expressions, posture shifts, voice changes. The emotionally uncontrolled are transparent. Transparent people are manipulable people. The Stoics understood this architecture centuries before neuroscience confirmed it. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor, military commander, and one of the most powerful men in human history, wrote his private journals not as celebration of his power, but as daily instruction to himself. Govern the response, not the stimulus. He ruled an empire by first ruling the 3 feet of space between his ears. The practice is specific. When provoked, pause for 5 full seconds before any response. Not a polite pause, a full 5 seconds of silence and eye contact while you process without reacting. This alone will unsettle most people, because they are conditioned to interpret silence as vulnerability. It is not. It is control made visible. Begin practicing this in low-stakes situations until it becomes reflex. Then it will hold when the stakes are high and you need it most. Comment below. I am the architect. Phase 4. Precision thinking over volume thinking. The ordinary mind generates 100 ideas and pursues 7 of them halfway. The sharp mind identifies one target, strips away every path that does not lead to it, and moves with the efficiency of a scalpel. Robert Greene, in The 33 Strategies of War, identifies this as the principle of the interior lines, the military concept in which a smaller, focused force defeats a larger, scattered one by operating from a single point of concentrated power. Napoleon used it to demolish coalitions 3 times his army's size. He did not have more men. He had more concentration. The psychological concept underpinning this is called ego depletion. The finding, first demonstrated by researcher Roy Baumeister, that willpower and decision-making draw from a limited cognitive resource. Every unnecessary decision made depletes the capacity for the decision that matters. The sharp mind conserves by eliminating choices before they consume attention. It moves deliberately and infrequently, but when it moves, it is final. Cosimo de' Medici, the architect of Renaissance Florence, was not the most educated man of his era, nor the most aggressive. He was the most precise. He made fewer decisions than his rivals, but made each one at the exact moment and in the exact direction that compounded into total dominance. He built the most powerful banking empire of the medieval world not by force, but by targeted, calculated action, sustained over decades. Pick one project, one goal, one relationship that currently sits unfinished because you have divided attention across too many others. Shut everything else down. Give that singular target 30 focused days, not hours, days, meaning every resource you would have scattered elsewhere now flows into one channel. The result will demonstrate something that scattered effort cannot. What your mind is actually capable of when it is not competing against itself. Because what precision creates is something that cannot be faked, and it is the one thing the sharp mind wears that others recognize before a word is spoken. Phase 5. Sharpness creates gravity. A sharp mind does not demand respect. It generates it, automatically, involuntarily. People do not choose to feel it, they simply do. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." The sharp individual understands this as strategy, not deception. What is visible, composure, deliberate speech, measured movement, unhurried certainty, becomes the signal that changes how others orient toward you. You do not tell people you are in control. You make them feel it in your presence before you open your mouth. This is not performance. It is the external consequence of internal architecture.
A person who has subtracted noise thinks more clearly. A person who sits in stillness processes more deeply. A person who commands emotion under pressure reads the room with accuracy others cannot access. The gravity is real because what generates it is real. Galileo demonstrated this under conditions that would have destroyed men without it. Under threat of torture and execution by the Inquisition, he recanted, publicly, visibly, on his knees. And then, according to history, whispered, "And yet it moves." That composure under annihilation was not bravado.
It was the gravity of a mind so organized that external catastrophe could not reach its center. You do not need to be threatened with execution to practice this, but you do need to stop seeking validation. Every time you explain yourself when you were not asked to, you signal insecurity. Every time you react to criticism before processing it, you signal instability. Every time you fill silence because it makes you uncomfortable, you signal need. Stop. The less you leak, the more powerful you become. The more powerful you become, the more others rearrange themselves around your stillness. Phase 6. Mistakes are not failures. They are intelligence unprocessed. The average man treats error as evidence of inadequacy. He hides it, rationalizes it, projects it onto others. And in doing so, he loses the only thing failure was ever designed to give him: information. Machiavelli wrote, "Fortune shows her power where valor has not prepared to resist her." Every mistake is a map of where you were unprepared, not where you are weak, where you were underprepared. And those are not the same thing. One is fixed, the other is correctable. The psychological concept here is called post-traumatic growth, documented by researchers Lawrence Calhoun and Richard Tedeschi, which reveals that humans who deliberately process adversity rather than suppress it emerge with measurably greater cognitive and emotional sophistication. The operating word is deliberately. The processing must be intentional, not accidental. Pain without analysis is just suffering. Pain with analysis is tuition. Napoleon failed catastrophically at Waterloo, overextended, exhausted, miscommunicating with his marshals. What made him a historical figure was not that failure, but the 2 decades of ruthlessly processed tactical mistakes that preceded it. Every failed campaign was reverse-engineered into doctrine. He turned error into architecture. After your next significant mistake, do not apologize to yourself and move on. Do not suppress and pretend. Instead, write exactly what happened, what decision led to it, what assumption failed, and what signal you missed that you will not miss again. Make it specific. Make it cold. Do it as if you were analyzing an enemy's strategy, not defending your own ego. That document becomes a weapon. Use it. Phase 7. The mind that never stops sharpening. Here is the darkest truth of this path, and the one no one who profits from your confusion will tell you. Sharpening the mind is not a destination. It is a permanent state of operation. There is no point at which you arrive and coast. There is no graduation. The blade that stops being sharpened begins immediately to dull. This means the path is lonely. It means the crowd will misread your silence as arrogance, your withdrawal from noise as superiority,
your refusal to react as coldness.
You will be misread, frequently, by people who have outsourced their thinking to whoever speaks loudest. That is not a problem to solve. It is a consequence to accept. Machiavelli wrote The Prince while stripped of his position, having been arrested, tortured, and exiled by the very Medicis he had served. He sat in a farmhouse outside Florence, impoverished, forgotten, and in pain, and produced the document that changed the architecture of political thought for 5 centuries. He had nothing but a clear mind, and a clear mind turned out to be the only thing that mattered. That is the paradox at the center of this path. The freedom it creates is cold. You will not find it celebrated at dinner tables or rewarded with applause. You will find it in the silence after everyone else has left the room, in the decisions you make that cannot be explained to people who haven't paid the price to understand them, in the face you see in the mirror after years of choosing discipline over comfort. This freedom is cold, but it is the only freedom that is truly yours. You made it to the end. That alone separates you. Not because watching a video is an achievement, but because the fragile left early. What you demonstrated by staying is the first quality of a sharpened mind, the refusal to retreat when the message becomes uncomfortable. Subscribe, not because I asked you to. Subscribe because you are done being the person whose attention is harvested by whoever wants it. Because you understand that the mind is not given to you sharp, it is made that way, and you have decided to make it. What I cannot say publicly goes deeper. If you want access to the content the algorithm will not surface, the unfiltered material on power, perception, and the architecture of influence, the door is in the membership. It is not for everyone. It was never meant to be. My mind is my greatest weapon. Drop it in the comments if you mean it.